Welcome to the 12th House podcast. I'm Michelle, the co-host and your head witch in charge here at Holisticism. I started Holisticism to help creative, intuitive, spiritual people actualize through their sacred work. And at the 12th House, that's what we talk about all day long. We give you tools to do whatever it is that you're here to do. That also means learning about things like self-knowledge, spirituality, creativity, everything that you need to really expand as a person and jump to the next level. I think you're going to love it. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast, and let's get into it. I'm Michelle, co-host and head witch in charge here at Holisticism, and I'm so excited for today's episode and for our guest. Alex Cantone is a human design genius, a new mom, and a projector waiting to be invited. She's also the host of You're Invited, a podcast about human design and being a projector, and just is an all-around great listen. I wanted to have Alex on the show. Let's be real, because I'm just nosy and I love to hear how other people do their work, how other people organize their time and their days. And while I don't necessarily think that all projectors should work the same way, I don't know enough about human design to have an opinion on that. I do find it really interesting to see the strategies that people who perhaps are hoping to work less employ to help them practically do that. Because I think we hear a lot for certain energy types, or if you're burnt out or whatever, just do less. Just sit back, do less. And if you're an anxious person, or you're a person who's trying to make money, or you're trying to have a big business, it's kind of like, I can't do that. Don't I have to hustle before I get to that place where I can coast? Kick, push, coast, And I think that Alex's strategy, perspective, kind of how she does everything, and how she explains it in this episode will be very illuminating for anyone who's also struggled with the practical, tactical stuff that comes with hoping to lower your workload. Alex also recently had a baby, so we jump right in because I'm 8 months postpartum. She's 9 weeks postpartum, and obviously there's big changes afoot. So I think if you resonate with your life having sort of big life events, moving in a different direction, maybe even an earth-shattering event that has changed the way that you want to approach your work and your purpose and how you spend your time here, I think you're really going to enjoy today's episode. All right. With that, let's get into it. You sound great. You look great. You're a mom now?
I'm a mom now.
How many months are you postpartum? How old is your baby?
So he just turned 2 months this past Saturday. So he is 9 weeks old at the time of recording.
How are you feeling?
I think it's just such a mixed bag, right now in this moment today, I'm feeling so good, but I don't know how I'm going to feel an hour from now or later on tonight. It's just such a roller coaster, and I'm such an emotional person, and I'm constantly emoting and feeling and doing all of the things. So yeah, postpartum has been a trip for me because it's been the way that I already am so emotional, but just intensified. And on top of that, you're just learning how to take care of yourself, take care of your partner, take care of your home, take care of all of these things that you usually take care of in the midst of having to be 24/7, basically on call, tethered to a brand new being who's just learning how to even be in the world and be separate from you. And that's a whole thing too, is the separation from yourself, and feeling that personally is wow, oh my gosh, I had him in me for 9 months, 10 months almost. And now we're not in that little safety bubble together. So it's a little tough to process. Yeah.
I feel he's going to be 8 months on Sunday, actually.
Wow.
He's the best. I'm obsessed with him. It only gets better. And I loved the newborn stage and thought it was really hard, but I really liked it. I thought parenthood was going to suck ass because everyone was it's the worst, your life's over. So I feel I really had my standards. The bar was on the ground. The bar was on the floor. So everything was great comparably because I was expecting my life to be over. But I think at 9 weeks, I still was afraid that my uterus was going to fall out. I was afraid that I had uterine prolapse, and everything still felt weird in my body. And I was leaking. Like I remember trying to return something at Nordstrom and like my boobs started leaking and they like leaked onto the floor. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. What am I doing? It's like a lot. I found that part, like the breastfeeding and the leaking to be like the thing that really was the most challenging. You know what I mean? It's not until I'm talking to you that I'm like, all right, it was really hard in the beginning, like trying to balance all that stuff. And, it's a lot.
It is. We just have to, like, me and my husband just have to like look at each other and just laugh at the end of the night. Sometimes it's tears and sometimes it's anger and sometimes it's not talking to each other. But a lot of times it's just like catching each other in that moment and being like, I mean, it's just a phase. And we keep saying it. We don't have that experience of knowing that it's just a phase yet because we're still in the first phase. But even thinking back to like the first 2 weeks were such a phase. And now we're just in this infant newborn phase. And we keep saying to each other, it's just a phase. It's just a phase. But I think both of us are like, it's just a phase, right? Like, do we believe that? And then everyone says to us, like, you look back and you realize that was really just a phase. And yeah, I mean, in my right mind, when I'm centered and grounded, I'm like, I've got this and this is amazing. And I wouldn't want any other experience right now. But when it's like 4 a.m. and he's waking up for the day.
And you just woke up an hour ago.
And my boobs are leaking all over the bed and I'm crying and I haven't slept because I've been waking up every 90 minutes. Like, saying it's just a phase, I'm like, I don't fucking care if it's a phase. You know what I mean?
Totally. That is something that was very helpful for us too. Just, we don't know if we're going to have more kids. So, cause my husband has some health issues. So just being like, I'm not going to probably do this again. Like if I do, amazing, but like I can't plan on doing this again. And like, while I wish I could have a labor do-over, I don't get a do-over. So like, it helps me a little bit contextualize when things are extremely hard and when I want to cry and just, give up. I'm like, okay, this is the last time I'm ever going to do this. And nothing lasts forever. The good stuff where he's like falling asleep on your chest and cuddling you. And when they smile, when you walk into the room, like, or when you wake them up from their nap, like, that won't last forever either, along with the like having to burp them for 30 minutes after you fed them and it's 4:00 in the morning. I mean, I guess that's the heartbreak of and joy of like being parent is, that's just like the passage of time. It sounds so trite because everyone says it, but it's true.
It's so true. It's the reason why everyone says it because it's so true. I was like crying over him the other day, just like there's going to be one day when he isn't going to want me to hold him anymore and when he's bigger than me and all of this stuff. And it's so true. Like,
yes, the thing that always made me cry was my mom saying like, there will be one day that it will be the last time you pick him up and you won't know.
Don't tell me that.
And I'm like, shut up.
I'm going to pick him up. I'm going to lift weights so I can pick him up when he's a grown man.
I'm going to carry him down the aisle when he gets married.
Exactly. I'm like, he's never leaving this house.
You start to like feel eras for yourself, like Taylor Swift style, where you're like, okay, we're in the newborn era where we're like, what the fuck is happening? What have we got ourselves into? We have to do this forever. And also like with work and business, is it just you in your business or do you have like a team that you work with?
So it's just me right now and I have an assistant, but like it's me and whoever I'm collaborating with or doing a project with at the time.
Yeah.
But I slowed things down majorly. It's funny. I ramped things up when I got pregnant. I had hired a business coach because things had been just sort of like, it felt like I was just still like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what was landing. I'm like way too far into this to be playing this game still. So I ended up hiring a business coach just for like accountability and cheerleading and all of that stuff. And I was pregnant at the time, didn't realize, found that I was pregnant a week later after I had signed this like year contract and made this huge, massive investment, right? Where I'm like, I have the year and I'm going to do this thing. And like, Chris was behind me on it and he's like encouraging me to do it. And then I find out I'm pregnant a week later and I'm like, oh my God, what happens now? And so the whole and that's almost been a year now. That was like August, in the beginning of August. And I did that in the middle of August. And the whole year now, has been this kind of grappling with like, everything changing. And that's sort of been the theme down to my birth with my baby, was just everything, like having to pivot has been the theme since I was pregnant. So like making these big decisions, having kind of these expectations and like visions for who I'm going to be and what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden it's like, you can't control that. Time to pivot. You have to trust. You have to just keep surrendering and surrendering and surrendering. And second trimester, I don't know if you felt this way, but in my second trimester, I was like, I'm running for president. I can conquer anything in this world. Like no one can knock me down.
I wish I felt that way. Wow.
Oh my
that's
gosh.
amazing.
I felt so good. I'm like, I want to be pregnant forever. Whatever hormones were in my body, I wanted to inject them into me. I wanted to like bottle them up and like take them like a drug. I was like, this is amazing. And I felt like I really was figuring some things out and some ways I wanted to work with clients and just like show up on social media and that whole thing, and then the third trimester hit and I didn't feel that like that at all. And it was like, I want to cocoon. I want to hibernate. This isn't feeling good anymore. So it was really challenging because I had to really detach from my business and social media and just like everything that I feel like I've worked towards, and just come to peace with the fact that like non-linear growth is just a part of the process and it's so more than okay. And that I am maybe not working towards the growth of my business right now, but like, I think that the job of growing and creating life in my body and then birthing that life is pretty damn important and, significant. So it's sort of coming to peace with like, right now, this is my job. And Chris is my husband. We're just constantly talking about that. And, he's such a cheerleader for me for everything that I do business wise and beyond, and is like my number one fan, but is also my number one support system. And is just like, hey, I've got you. Like this is not your season to be grinding and growing and putting extra stress on your plate. Like, let me carry us through this season. And honestly, that is probably the biggest gift I've ever been given, is the ability to just focus on all of my energy, all of my time, everything that I have in me on our baby, and be able to just be like, you know what, I'm just shelving the growth for now and the creation of anything for now. And talking about human design, and being a projector, like this is the ultimate opportunity for me to be like, hey, I'm available for invitations. And, like I'm just here. So it's sort of like anything that comes into my awareness and I'm being called into just gets to be extra.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like surprise, like I haven't slowed down or I've slowed down, but like I haven't stopped doing things because of course then opportunities come and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll totally do that. So I'm still working on things behind the scenes, but it's not necessarily driven by me being like, okay, I have to do this thing now. And it's felt more aligned than ever before. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is actually a really fun way of doing business, which is just like making myself available and assessing whether or not I have the energy to invest in whatever is being presented to me.
I mean, I think that's the biggest shift when you have a baby is, or at least I'll speak from the eye. That was my biggest shift. And going into maternity leave, my goal was to be gone-ish for 3 months. Definitely off for at least like I had my baby the week of Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving. So it was like perfect timing.
Everything's like slowing down.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like he did a good job there. And I kind of came back to like record podcasts in January, but I was really like hands off with my team. And coming back, I just was like, wow, I need to cut down everything. Any extra space or brain space or money that's going to something that isn't generative in this business has to go immediately. And it was like a big calling down and shift in the business. And I'm very grateful for it because I feel so much lighter and clearer now. And it sounds like that's kind of what you were going through when you signed up with your coach. Like something in you knew that you would be going through this like alchemical process, right? And like the first stage of the alchemy is the burning away, calcification, right? So what's been the through line that you've seen as like things have shifted and you're asked to like edit down over and over again? Like what's sort of emerged as the pearl?
Such a good question. I mean, my original intention was not to necessarily create a business. It was just to find a way to support myself and not have to work for anyone else. It wasn't like, I want to create this massive empire and have a big company and all of these things. I just wanted an out from having to go into a job every single day. And I was like, if I could just make ends meet and make it work, live my life and do my thing. Like, I'm not looking for anything fancy, you know?
Yeah.
And coming onto social media was more so just this need to have a place to dump my thoughts and ideas. And there's a part of me that feels the need to do that, not really in a journal tucked in my nightstand, but like out for the whole entire internet to see. It's like, I want everyone to read my thoughts and everyone to see my things, just because it's just this like compulsive thing that I have inside of me. So
is that part of your design, or is it just,
you know what? I think it is. I think just as a 6'2" profile and being that I'm designed to like live this whole process of life out loud. And I have a lot of significant like emotional kind of definition, even though I'm not emotionally defined, but I have just some different like circuitry and gates that are just meant for sharing. And I just think like there's something in me that's just meant to share and almost like lead by this example of just feeling through life. And in this age, this Aquarian age, the internet is the best place to do that, right? To like have those connections online and I don't know, build a community in that way. And I think I also was just looking for, some resonance in other people of like, hey, are other people going through this experience? Do other people feel like there's maybe more to than what we've been told that we can all explore together? And so originally, like, my whole intention was really not about business building. It was just about connection and finding an outlet for myself. And then over time, it kind of, I like to say accidentally grew into something, and people are like, it didn't really accidentally grow. Like, you made intentional choices, but it feels like that it just sort of happened. And I think that because my success came really quick and intense, right? In that it was like 2018, 2019 when, you know, there aren't so many social media accounts flooding the internet. It wasn't like everyone was doing this. There were like a couple human design accounts specifically. And I was really going hard on this parenting aspect, funny enough, before I'm a parent.
Yeah.
Everyone was just like so hungry for the information, and I had it, and it created this business sort of accidentally, and I had to like make moves really quickly. And then there was this part of me that sort of had to uphold, or felt the need or felt the pressure to like uphold this thing that I had created, when I was just sort of having fun creating things and experimenting with things, and like not necessarily wanting to scale something at the time. I just was kind of still bumping into life and having fun and pre-Saturn return and like going through the experience of like, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, like fucking things up and just like, you know, enjoying it.
Yeah. You're doing 6-line.
Totally.
You know, I'm
doing
a 4-6,
the 6-line.
So.
Oh, you're a 4-6.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just like doing the 6-line thing, or doing the 3rd line, the pre-6-line, the pre-roof thing. And I think I just felt this pressure. So going back to your question of like, what's the pearl? What's like the theme is just, it's just this trust. It's this surrender. It's like looking at everything and going, I don't need to uphold this image and, you know, be this like example of, look at how I've like grown and created this like massive thing. And it's okay if like other people have done that and it might not be my time right now. There's like a whole thing that kind of happens where I don't know. I look at my peers in the human design space who have grown so massively, who were like, we were all sort of on the same level business wise at one point. And then some other people just sort of blew up, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to hang back and float. And it's not like I haven't found a massive amount of success in my own way, but I think this whole entire ebbing and flowing and all of these different like life experiences have just taught me like, you just kind of surrender to the timeline that is yours and like trust that, you know, the different seasons of life are going to offer you different areas of life to grow in. And this past year has like been the best year of my life. And it hasn't been this focus on business, despite me investing in a business coach for the year. It's like, ironically, it's been just more focused on love and receiving support. And maybe that's the pearl, is like letting myself be supported rather than feeling like all of this stuff that I have built has to be the one single sole thing that supports me and is my foundation. Like, my foundation can be my people and my partner and my child and these other identities and roles that I play in the world. And the business can kind of be more so like just the icing on the cake rather than the little like pedestal that it sits on, because it just takes so much pressure off of me to be like, oh, I don't have to upkeep this role and these responsibilities, and I get to really be in this kind of like feminine motherly energy that I'm feeling really called into right now. And what if that can be an avenue for success in a way that I've never opened my eyes to before? And how can I just lead with this like surrender and this trust and just allow myself to flow with it? And that's kind of been like, I don't know if I even answered the question, but
You did. I mean, speak on it. We kind of like lose the plot sometimes. I
Yeah.
mean, like royal collective we, when it comes to, I think like running a business, because especially like in the age of the internet, to your point, I think we get started for a reason. It's like, I just want freedom, right? Like I don't need to make like $1 billion a year. I don't need to like be, I don't know, world renowned. Would be cool if like the people I like respected me, but like, I just want to like not have to go and sit at my job and feel like I'm wasting my life sitting behind this desk every day. And then we get started and we learn a lot. We learn enough to be dangerous, where it's like, I know that if I grow things, it can look like this, but I don't exactly know how to do that. So I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. I'm going to overwork. I'm going to see some success. I'm going to see some traction. And I think I'll speak from the eye, that can be like addicting, right? That to continually get that feedback that like, oh, this is working. This is working. And sometimes I think those are like nods from the universe or from people that like, yeah, this is working, like you're on the right path. And other times it's wind in your sails. It's not necessarily pointing you in the right direction. And you gotta like have a clarifying moment or talk with God where you're like, wait a second, where are we going? What was the point of this? Why am I doing this? Or, and is this like still the right thing for me? And that can be very unsettling because like to your point, you've worked so hard, you've invested this money in making this thing, to have like a tower moment where you kind of burn it down and then you maybe emerge as the phoenix from that. It's kind of like, okay, is this actually going to be fertilizer for my next thing? Or did I just like waste my resources on building what I've just been spending my time on for the last couple months or years? Does that make sense?
No, yeah. And I think that really speaks to, I mean, you're a 4/6. So I think that really just speaks to the process of being a 6 line. I look out at a lot of people who are building businesses using social media as their main like vehicle for, growth. And I know a lot of their designs, the people who I'm watching, and there's a lot of 3rd line energy. There's a lot of 5th line energy, which is more about like being the teacher and being the experimenter and being the person who like creates the programs and guides people through experiences, and then I look at the 6 lines and I see 6 lines doing a lot more of like, okay, I'm in this and I'm doing this thing. And then there is this little perfectionist piece that we have where it's like, wait, like that's not the thing. I need to like pull back, suck it all in, refine it, come back, right? And then kind of do that process all over again where it's this like, I'm bringing this new thing or I'm bringing this new perspective, and then you experience it and then you're like, let me pivot. And then I'm going to bring it back again. And I think more than anything else, like, it's not to say that a 6 line can't have an incredibly successful business that they scale and grow. I mean, it's like anyone can, it's not about human design. But I think what I see in the 6 line is like this real almost drive for a lot of 6 lines to be more life experience led than like knowledge led. And I
Mm-hmm.
can think of some off the top of my head, which aren't necessarily like that, but I guess maybe just for myself, like I'm more interested in the human behind the business, the human behind the platform. Like I really just want to know about you and who you are and what your experiences are like and what kind of meaning you make of the things that you move through in the world. And so I'm really more attracted to like kind of more of like the influencer than I am the business builder. And I think I've
Mm-hmm.
always tried to find like where do those two things meet? Because I know that I have knowledge, but then I also know that I have this like life experience and how is that ultimately displayed? It's just so easy. I don't know. I kept hearing kind of the same line right before I hopped on this call. It's like, it's so easy to compare ourselves to other people who are doing it, other people who we perceive as super successful. And I think that that can be sometimes this like signpost that almost like ignites that inner compass part of us. It's like, I kind of want to move in that direction, maybe try on something like that. But I think the comparison game can easily become a very slippery slope when we start to look at, oh, well, this person is like, has this thing and this many followers and they've sold this many things and they're being this transparent about all of these sales and all of this stuff. And it's just like, okay, let's take a beat and recenter and, remind ourselves the thing that you and I have in common. Why did we come here in the first place? And it was really
Mm-hmm.
just for freedom, right? For expression. And sure, growth and financial success and community can be a really wonderful byproduct of that original motivation and drive. But I just think it's so important to continue to like center back into what brought me here in the first place and what was I showing up and talking about and doing before making a dollar was even on my radar. And that was just
Yeah.
like sharing my experiences and sharing my heart and sharing the things that I see out in the world that I'm like, hey, I think we could be looking at this way instead. And I think for projectors, it's such a good word to just remember what it is that you really love doing and what you see yourself doing, not just when you have your phone, but when you put your phone down and you go out into the world and you're just seeing things and talking to people and like, what are those common themes that are coming up? And that's probably the thing that you're really, really, really good at and skilled in. You might not even see it, until someone
Mm-hmm.
else points it out in you. But if you can have that self sort of trust that and that like confidence that if I just continue to live the way that I want to live and do the things that I want to do and worry less about all of the growth and all of the have tos and all of the timelines, like life is going to happen for you faster than you could ever possibly plan for. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
one of my biggest things in this past year, like I just posted about it the other day because I was reflecting on, I just turned 31 on the 17th.
Oh, happy
And
birthday. Love
thank you.
Cancer.
Yeah.
So your
And
Cancer sun, what's your rising and your moon sign?
Cancer, Sun, Pisces, Moon, and Pisces rising.
I'm a Pisces sun, Cancer rising, Scorpio moon.
Wow. Both triple water signs.
Yeah, both of
I love
like a
it.
little emo girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of course we're like more like, let's just flow with it. I mean, you're not going to keep us on a structure. So now it's even more permission. Like there's no structure here. There's no need.
The structure is there is no structure. Yes,
Yeah. The
exactly.
structure is that there's none. But yeah, I was reflecting on my year the other day and like in 1 year, I moved in with Chris, got pregnant, got engaged, got married, and had our baby. I planned none of it. I never had a timeline. I never had like this is when I think it should happen and all of these things. Like we never had to plan anything. Nothing in our relationship was like, okay, so let's really think about, what we want this to look like. And I don't know. It might be the unpopular opinion, but I think in business, it kind of works the same way for me. It's like when I try to sit there with a team and go, okay, guys, like this is what we're going to do. And this is our 1 year thing. And this is what we're looking at. It like takes me out of my own flow. And when I just let things happen and I'm like, you know what? whatever is meant for me, it's just going to happen. Then like the coolest invitations come and I'm like, I never would have been able to see that if I was so busy going back to the whiteboard of, like my 1 year, 3 year, 5 year timeline every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what works for me. I'm not prescribing that method to all projectors. It's just like that is what I'm finding works for me, is the less grip, the like looser grip that I have on the steering wheel of life, the more I can kind of have my head on a swivel and be like, maybe I'll turn that way. Maybe I'll turn that way. And then I just go down these unexpected paths and end up like on a date that leads me to the baby that I have right now, and of course there was a lot in between those two things, but yeah, it just feels like I get to just mosey on through at my own pace, as opposed to like plugging in the end goal into the GPS system and following every single little strategic turn that it offers me.
Totally. Well, first off, just knowing the meaning making systems, right? Being a triple water, being a projector, that makes sense. But I think also just even from a like logistical business perspective, things that do well solve problems for the people they're made for. And I say this a lot because I learned it from an awesome mentor, to fall in love with the problem, not your solution to the problem. And I think that reminds me of what you're saying. Like, I'm going to craft this plan and it's going to be this, and people are going to love this thing that I made. And what's most important is the thing that I made, not the people that I'm like making it for, and listening to them because they're having an experience too. Like, think back to the pandemic. If you created a product in January 2020, what you needed to make for people, or, a service, the problem you needed to solve for people in April 2020 was probably very different. And that is a really nice, like, honing question for me of like, right, am I in love with like my solution that like has the perfect bow on it that I think people want? Or am I actually in love with the world around me and how it's presenting itself to me in its aliveness, as opposed to in its like, I don't know, linear nature? And we talk a lot about having like squiggly brains here, having nonlinear creative minds that don't just go on a straight timeline. And I think that's part of it too. Like, if you have a nonlinear brain naturally, to sort of try to straighten yourself out just kind of flattens the dimension of who you are and your gifts, to your point.
Yeah, it's so true. I love that. You just like sparked something in me, because I was talking to a client the other day who is in the first 6 months of her business. And I really see how I work with a lot of women who are in that first like 6 to 12 months and do a lot of long-term mentorship. So I get to really put myself back in the shoes of like, where was I and what was I doing in that first 6 to 12 month period, and I see people come in with these really like high and heavy expectations about being super strategic and being like, well, I want to be able to create like some sort of guide and this thing and this product of services and offerings and all of these things. Mind you, I work with like pretty much all of my clients are projectors. So a lot of times, like, as projectors, we do see the solution so clearly. And it's like so easy for us to be having that conversation with a friend, right? Who's just venting to us or telling us something about what's going on in their life. And then suddenly we pull out like the metaphorical life coaching binder and we're like, okay, well, here, step one is blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, wait, I just wanted to be heard. Yeah. They did not ask. Like, I just wanted to be heard. Like, I just wanted to tell you about what was going on. Right. And I think that the same thing for business with projectors is we can so easily, like, any single follower or a person or like anyone who comes to our free webinar or whatever, we can so easily be like, okay, well, these are the steps that you need to take and blah, 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 blah. And I think that there's just so much value as a projector in letting people tell you what they need and want from you, and not in this way where you become like this disposable vat of information and energy. Like, it's always up to you. But I was saying to her, there's so much value in allowing your community to really tell you like what they want and need from you. And then you deciding by being super selective and picky, like, oh, I actually do want to pursue that thing and I want to work with that person. She was talking about how she was feeling a little bit burnt out by one-to-ones and how she's like, I just don't think I want to do one-to-ones anymore. I see every single projector in the beginning of their business go through this of like so hard on one-to-one kind of sessions or offerings. And then all of a sudden they're like, I can't do it anymore. I'm like totally burnt out.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I understand, because you're not burnt out with one-to-ones. You're burnt out with the way in which you're offering your energy in one-to-one sessions, right? Let's look at the frequency. Let's look at your schedule. Let's look at what you're making yourself available for. Are you just letting anyone book a one-to-one session with you? Like, I think sometimes we get so afraid that if we don't just have the offering like consistently available and so easy for people to like click to buy and check out, that if we make it too hard, we make ourselves too exclusive, that we're never going to get clients. But it's like to kind of flip that concept on its head and go, actually exclusivity is what's going to get me more traction and like more success. Because if I make myself less available, not in like a stuck up, like, I'm not going to work with you way, but just like, hey, I'm actually being super selective about who I'm working with. And like, it's the reason why I don't always advertise mentorship, because people will just be like, hey, are you still offering that thing? And I'm like, oh, cool. Here's another person, you know, it's like they came and reaching in and looking for me. So I said to her, like, let people reach in, let people look for you, let yourself be a little bit challenging to find. Like, sure, you might think that because you're new, you need to like establish a name for yourself and build trust in your community. But in what you were saying, it's like pour into what you love pouring into, and then just trust that people will will come up with their own ideas about what solution they might need. And because you're so passionate and focused on the problem, they're going to come in and be like, I resonate with these issues and with the way that you speak about this so much. What kinds of solutions do you offer, or do you offer this type of solution, and can I invest in it? And like, that is such a hard switch to make. And I have to constantly be reminding myself of it, but I see it in that context so often. And it's just like, let yourself be exclusive and let the people come to you and tell you what sort of solutions they're looking for.
That's so astute. And I would even say, like, I don't know. It's so funny that you're like, oh, people are burnt out from doing one-on-ones when they first get started, but it's not the one-on-one work that they don't like. I totally felt that way. I was a consultant before I started holisticism, and I was like, I never want to have one-on-one clients again. Like, I just never want to do that. And now, actually, after I had my baby, all I want to do is work with people one-on-one for an extended period of time. I want to cocoon with them and like grow with them and nurture them over time, and not feel rushed, and really feel like we can like chew on a concept. And I'm exclusive because I literally don't have time. Like, I have so much time on my calendar that I need for my baby, for me to be like the best version of myself, for me to do deep work, that I really only have a couple of slots available, like literally. And I couldn't make more time if I wanted to. Like, I just wouldn't, I don't have it. So it's exclusive because I just don't have the time. And as projectors, you know, we can work however we want, I think, but I would say all the people I've met tend to need more thinking time and metabolization time than like actual nose to the grindstone work time.
Yeah. And there is something like about the experience of becoming a parent where I can go from preaching those concepts and then it actually happens where I don't have the time and I'm like, okay, well now I have to follow my own medicine.
It's a forcing function. It's kind of annoying.
Don't have any other choice.
Yes.
It is kind of annoying. And I was saying the other day, like, I actually take my own medicine now. Like, I actually receive invitations and have to go, is this checking all of the boxes? Like, is this like every single thing that I want to do, right? Down to a podcast interview like this. Right. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I definitely want to do this, but like, I have to figure out how to make space for it, or if I have the space for it. And it's so easy when you don't have anything else taking your energy or your time to be like, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. And I also think that it's really a natural part of the projector process and even of the entrepreneurial process, right? To like do all of the things and take on all of the things, because you have to sort of have that experience of getting really overloaded.
Yep.
And then realizing like, well, half of this shit that I said yes to, I probably actually shouldn't have said yes to.
And it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like you can delete it off your schedule. You can stop so much. There's so much that people can just stop doing today, right now.
Totally.
That like is burning them out. That is not contributing to anything in their life other than burnout. Like it's not worth it, you know?
Totally. I literally I think it was last summer. I actually don't know when it was. I invested in like a whole entire new website, was going in this whole other new direction in my business. On the day of the launch, I got so sick, and for like 24 hours, I had to like look at it, and I was just like, I can't do it. And I just straight up deleted all of it.
Yeah.
And had to come to peace with that. But
Yep.
it's like, sometimes I just think it's so not worth you feeling unwell about it. And especially if your body tells you through getting sick, like if you get physically ill when you're supposed to do something, that's the number one, reason to step back and look at it.
I had a very similar thing happen. I paid like $5,000 to build a new website for one of our podcasts. And, when I got back from maternity leave, I was like, I think we should cancel the podcast. And like, damn, that sucks. But expensive lesson, but important lesson because, like sunk cost fallacy, so many of us, because we've spent the money, because you built the website, whatever, we're like, but I already did it. So like now I have to see it through because I invested the money. But like, you're going to continue to lose money and energy and time exponentially if you stay in anything for a second longer than you're supposed to. And like we're getting those signs all the time, but it's so hard to like mentally justify listening to your intuition sometimes.
Well, we measure so much in dollar amounts, right? Like that's just so much of what we use to measure things is how much does it cost? What is this investment? How much am I making from this?
Right.
And it's like, that is not the only form of currency. Like there's so much else that's happening. And like you said, you'll lose $5,000. That's tough.
Yep.
But what else am I going to lose by putting myself in this situation that I just know I don't want to be a part of? Like you're going to lose so much more than $5,000, and it might actually cost you more because you could literally develop a health issue, right? Or like get yourself in a pickle, or just keep kind of going against the force of nature to do this thing that's really not aligned. And you could be $20,000 like in the pit by the end of it because you just totally weren't listening to your own intuition.
Yeah. And the universe will keep bumping you, kind of like bumper cars, like get off that ride. And it gets more and more extreme, to your point. Yeah. It can cost you a lot. It's not worth it. You just sometimes you just have to be ruthless and quit. Like be ruthless about quitting things.
Honestly, like I love saying no to things and I love just like saying never mind. And this was even something that happened coming back, because I had these long-term mentorship clients for a year. One was even over a year.
Wow.
And I said to her, like, look, I am having a baby. Like I am obviously going to go through this massive transformation. I have no idea who I'm going to be on the other side. I said this to all my clients, like I am giving myself 8 weeks and then going to review it 8 weeks and see if I need more time before I get back on Voxer. But there's also a possibility that I'm just going to say like, never mind, and refund your money. And sometimes you just have to be like willing to risk that, because I just can't stand that feeling of dreading what I have to do, right? And like dreading this promise that I made. I don't know if you have an undefined heart in human design, but a lot of times I look to the undefined heart and remind myself with an undefined heart, like I'm not designed to make promises. So when or to necessarily keep the promises that I make, like sure, I can make promises, right? And it can happen and I can follow through with them. But I also have to be aware that sometimes I'm going to make a promise or say that I'm going to do something or say that I'm available for something. And then I'm just not going to my heart is not going to be in it down the road. And I have to be okay with saying, look, my heart's not in it anymore. And it's not fair to you or I to continue this investment and to continue this partnership, because like a decision that is not right for me when it affects the other person isn't going to be the right decision for them. So me not you like saying, oh, we should do this podcast, and then going, actually, I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, maybe there's this initial like letting people down feeling, but it's more so just like, if I'm making that decision, I'm not like ruining anyone's life through this decision. That is the right decision for me is the right decision for anyone else involved in this scenario. Maybe someone could argue with me and be like, well, what about in this scenario? But it's never been untrue for me, at least.
If you're not going to bring your full self to the thing, like, it is a waste of everyone's time, yours included, and the other person, and their resources. And like, that I would say some people might fret that canceling or changing your mind is disrespectful, but I'd argue that coming to the table, half-assing it, or just like rolling your eyes through whatever, not that you would do that, but not wanting to be there, that is more disrespectful than saying like, actually, I can't 100% stand behind this meeting, this podcast, this experience that I said I was going to deliver, and like giving people their freedom back in a way, their choice.
Yeah. I mean, like, look at it in terms of a marriage, right? Like if you're up at the altar and the one person is just head over heels in love and the other person is like totally uncertain, just because one party is all in and it's aligned for them, like doesn't mean that it's necessarily true for the other person. And for the person who's not all in, it's not fair to the person who is.
It's painful,
right?
Yeah.
To be, So you wouldn't do that in a relationship where you're like, you know what? I really don't want to be with this person anymore, but I think I'm just going to see it through to the end. Like you just would never, at least from my perspective, you would never do that.
Right. Yeah. It's so much easier to think about it in love, but I think we make a lot of sacrifices, not compromises, when it comes to making money because of whatever, programming, scarcity mindset, just like not knowing when our next thing will come. And that's just a trust muscle and like a intuition, flexing your intuition muscle of like, right, this isn't right. I have to know that it's going to pay off down the road, and I have no idea how it's going to pay off, me making the choice that's correct for me, because I can't see into the future. But I do know that if I like continue to trust myself and have my own back, I'm always going to be fine. Like I'm always going to I'll never get so off the path and not be able to hear myself that I'll be lost in the forest. Like I'll always have my North Star to use a camping metaphor.
I love it.
Alex, it was so great to just chat with you, and I'm a fan. I love following your work, and I'm so excited for you and your new era in motherhood. How can people find you and work with you or not, or like follow along on your journey?
Yeah, so I'm mostly just on Instagram at Alex Cantone, newly on Threads. I don't know if you've been on.
Love Threads.
I'm
thriving on Threads.
In love with it. Absolutely thriving, threading on Threads. But yeah, Alex Cantone anywhere, alexcantone.com for my website. I don't even know what's on my website right now. And then, if anyone feels called to work with me, just DM me and ask me what's available. I'm just in a season of send me the invitation, ask me what I'm available for or not, and just say hi and you resonate with me. And I'm always down to just connect with new people. And for me, it's just about the community and the like-mindedness and that feeling of, you know what, like maybe if we don't belong in our innermost circles and feel like we're super connected in those places all the time, like you always have other places that you can find that connection and that resonance. And I think in the human design community is a beautiful place to find that connection and find that community. So come on over to my corner of the internet and, I'm always down to chat with a new person.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It was so great to connect with you.
Thank you.